What's up? We out here. It's Buff Missionary, waking up early in the morning. And I wanted to continue going through this book, his favorite book of mine, Steps of Christ. Like, subscribe, share, and get some insights from it. And I'm not going to lie, this book so many times keeps showing me like where I am falling short and where maybe Christianity can do better in representing who God really is and who Jesus really is to the world. Man, it can be frustrating sometimes, but I think that if we go back and we look at this thing, we can get inspired and try to do better. So check this out. In describing his earthly mission, Jesus said, "The Lord has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised." That's in Luke 4:18. This was his work. He went about doing good and healing all that were oppressed by Satan. Now, I preface all of this by saying this. I want you to think about how you see Christianity, your own perception. This is whether you are an atheist, whether you are a Buddhist, whether you are a Christian, whether you are a Baptist, whether you're Adventist, doesn't matter. I want you to think about what's being said here and compare that to the picture and the perception that you have of those who claim to follow Christ. See if it matches up. See if there's something different, and then put down in the comments what you notice and what you think about that. Jesus went about doing good and healing all that were oppressed by Satan. There were whole villages where there was not a moan of sickness in any house, for he had passed through them and healed all their sick. Excuse me. I'm a little worn out. Been traveling a lot over the last couple weeks and still trying to recover out here. That's why I'm kind of on that Batman voice tip right now. But I have to ask the question, if I'm supposed to be, as a follower of Christ, someone who reflects the things that he did, what is the impact that I have when I go around groups of people, when I go to different places, when I go to different locations, as I'm traveling, as I just mentioned? What's the impact that I have on the people around me? Are they benefited? Are they uplifted? Are they encouraged because I was there with them? Or is it the opposite, or something else, something other than that? Something we really have to think of. It says, his work gave evidence of his divine anointing. There's an interesting correlation that's being drawn here. Because of the work that Jesus was doing, it gave evidence to the anointing that he had. In other words, the things that we do, if they actually reflect God, are evidence that we are supported by God and benefited. I'm struggling to find the right word, but it's like that spiritual endorsement. I'll put it to you this way. There's a lot of people out there who say that God told me to do this, God told me to do that, and they go and do all of these things, and those things end up actually hurting people and being a harm to people, being a negative influence to people. And they're out here trying to put behind it that it was God that told them to do these things. The work is an evidence of the anointing that you have. If we're doing good works, it's evidence that God is the one who's anointed us. And if we're not doing things that are benefiting other people, healing other people, encouraging, inspiring those around us in the places that we go, that's a different kind of anointing, if you can even call it that, if you know what I'm saying. All right, so let's move on. Love, mercy, and compassion were revealed in every act of his life. His heart went out in tender sympathy to the children of men. What is your perception when you see somebody else different than you? Think about the culture that we live in right now. We have a lot of people getting in trouble for saying some things that are putting other cultures and communities in a box at the expense of those that are trying to uplift themselves. And yet that doesn't seem like a very divinely anointed and inspired thing to do, huh? Jesus cared about everybody, and he was able to show love and respect to all different kinds of people, not just the people like him. Jesus wasn't just trying to uplift and promote his kind, his bloodline. He was trying to show that every single person who existed could be a part of the same family, have the same benefits. And it's not the fault of God that the world is the way that it is today. That's humans. That's on us. We're the ones who have looked down on other people for hundreds of years and treated people badly for hundreds of years, thousands of years. That's on us. That's on us, and we can do better, especially, again, if we claim to be followers of Jesus, then we have an obligation and a duty to not look at other people through the lens of my skin or their culture, but through the heavenly culture and the way that Jesus would look at other people. That's so vitally important. Can we really say that love, mercy, and compassion are revealed in everything that we do? These days? I don't know. It's a good check and balance right there. But this part right here, this gets me. The book says, he took man's nature. Jesus took man's nature that he might reach man's wants. So, I call myself the buff missionary. People call me that. And I have a really strong appreciation for missions. But what I've noticed is that a lot of people try to say, oh, being a missionary, that's neocolonialism and you're forcing this and that on other people. And the irony there is that all the people who say that are the ones who would never go to be a missionary. They're the ones who have no interest in the mission mentality. They're the ones who have zero interest in going to actually serve someone else. They're putting out this big front as an excuse as to why they can't find the decency and the they can't find it in their hearts to go and serve someone else. That's what that is. All right. I'm calling all that junk out. But here's the thing. What missions really is what we just read in that line right there. Jesus came. Imagine someone way up here, above humanity in every regard, and with every right to come down and to say, hey, y'all are some bums, and this is how we roll. This is how I do things, and y'all should try to be like me. If anyone had the right to do that, it was Jesus, but he didn't. He took our nature, our human, busted nature. He took that nature so that he could relate to us and to reach us. When I think of mission, the mission mentality, what it is being willing to get yourself out of this mentality of how good you think you are, or how well you think you have it. And just to say, you know what? Let me go and be with these people. Let me go and become one of them. That way I can begin to identify with them, to see life the way that they see it. And then in that, you begin to see the ways that you can best impact them and inspire them and reach them. I've talked about this before, but briefly, my first year back in 2015 as a missionary, when I was teaching Bible at the high school. Man, the school, of course, 95% non-Christian, non-Adventist, and I'm teaching Bible to a plethora of students, a lot from South Korea, from China, Japan, Taiwan, Australia, like all over America, whatever. And you had all the different religions that come with that, even some spiritualist and animist religions as well, students who believe that. But when I was first teaching, I had my whole lesson plan and my thought process like, it's going to be this way. And I'm going to make sure that these kids know this way from my perspective and from my understanding. And guess what? Very promptly, the first couple weeks of school, half the students were asleep, more than half. And I realized this is just not working. There was one question that was asked in that class that really made me rethink my entire approach. And I was talking about David, my favorite Bible character, and one of the students raised their hand and says, "Who's David?" When I heard that, I was like, hold up. It was like a reset button for me. Like, what do you mean you don't know who David is? I thought that for a second, but then I thought again before speaking and was like, shoot, I can't be talking about all this stuff from my perspective as if the students know everything that I know. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And so I wrote on the board, always look to Jesus and always ask questions, and began to invite the questions. Anything that you have a question about, ask it. We'll go back, we'll cover it, we'll explain it. So that way we can be more on the same page. That switch, and then the other switch, I realized that, you know what? I was thinking to myself, there has to be a way that this stuff makes sense. Jesus says the gospel is for all people, to go ye therefore. Like, there has to be a way that this connects with, there has to be something of value here for everybody in the world, not just people who already are Christian. And what I began to realize the more I looked into some of these other religions and talked more with the students about their backgrounds is that different aspects of the gospel very strongly intersect with different aspects of all these different religions. There's something about the gospel that can be good news to someone else who's in a different religion. But if I never take the time to put myself in their shoes, if I never take the time to think of where they're coming from, I'll never find it. And I'll get upset that they're not listening to me from my perspective and then try to say, oh, well, bump y'all because y'all aren't getting it, even though I'm giving you the truth. And we'll come back to that in another video. But to me, that's what the core of mission is, being willing, again, to take myself out of my shoes, put myself in someone else's shoes, to see life the way that they do. Then I'll be able to see those connections and how the gospel can actually mean something and have value to them. The poorest and humblest were not afraid to approach him. Sometimes when you think of Christians and this kind of better than you, better than thou mentality that a lot of Christians can have, it's not inviting. It's honestly not inviting. And the people that we claim were put on earth to go and help have no interest in approaching us for that help because they see the way that we act. They see the way that we are. They see the way that we look down on other people. And they're not interested in that. But again, the irony is, as people who call ourselves Christians and claim to be followers of Christ, that's not what Christ did. So where's the disconnect? You know what I'm saying? Where's the disconnect? I mean, it says it pretty simply here. The poorest and humblest were not afraid to approach him. Are the people around us so touched by our loving and compassionate presence that they are not afraid to approach us? That they're interested in what we're bringing to the table as a follower of Christ, that they want to know more about that there's a spark that they see that, man, I want some of that. What do you have that I don't have? Not something that I have to go tell other people, I have this and you don't, so come listen to me. We got it all wrong. We got it all wrong. We should be living in a way. The truth should be so displayed in our lives through love and compassion that other people see what we have and want it, not want to get away from it and want to run away from it. Man, I have a passion for mission. I also have a passion for young people. And when I think about the church today and how there's a struggle to keep young people in the church, I do think, and this is a side note, that there's a correlation between mission and young people and giving them a practical reason to stay and to appreciate the truth in the gospel that I believe in. Excuse me. But when I see that struggle, the youth are not dumb. We might say they're young, dumb, and broke as as whatever. But we might look at them like that. But the reality is, they're intelligent and they see inconsistency, and they may not have all of the answers, but something that they do that they're very cognizant of and very aware of is that there's some inconsistency between the things that we say and the things that we do. And they want something that's more aligned. They want something more in harmony, and they're willing to go other places now, more so than they have been in the past, to go and find that. In the past, you used to be able to say, well, my dad's a Christian and my granddad was a Christian, so I'm a Christian too. Young people these days are not buying that. They're not buying that. They're looking for something that they can really be a part of, something that can have value for them, something that they can appreciate and act on that makes sense with who they are. They want who they claim to be and the things they do to be in harmony. As Christians, as followers of Christ, we have the biggest responsibility to make sure that the things we say and the things we do are in harmony. And oftentimes, because of whether it's politics, whether it's issues on like race or whatever it might be, whatever the differences could be, people are not seeing that in us and they have no interest. We can do better. We can do better. I can do better. I'm not excluding myself from this. It says, even the little children were attracted to him. They loved to climb upon his knees and gaze into the pensive face benignant with love. They could see it. They could feel it. And they were drawn to him as a result. I believe that as a follower of Christ, my life should reflect what Christ did. And when I read through this, it reveals to me a lot of flaws that I have and that we may have in our way of thinking as Christians and Adventists. There's kind of a misconception that we have the truth, so we lord it over other people and we discount those who don't want to accept it. I don't see any of that from Christ. I see someone who is focused first on love, compassion, acceptance, putting himself in someone else's situation so he could relate to them and actually see what could make the biggest impact for them. And as a result, they were drawn to him and they wanted to hear more of what he had to say. The encouragement for us today in listening to what this book has to say here is live your life in a way that people are more curious about who you are and what you're about. Don't live it in a way that turns people off, not just to you, but to the God you claim to follow. It's deep. And it should be. It matters. It matters. So I'm going to leave y'all with that. And I'm going to get on out of here. Got a lot to do today. But hey, once again, it's Buff Missionary. Like, subscribe, share this with somebody else. We out here trying to do a little something different, trying to see the world through Christ's eyes and not just our own perspective. So until next time, peace.